Welcome to Still Growing in Grace, a program dedicated to inspiring joy, giving hope, and delighting in grace. I'm Mike Zenker, and I'll be sharing with you a message of hope that will expand your understanding of God's love and amazing grace. God already deeply loves you, totally accepts you, and really, really likes you. Growing in Grace Ministries Canada and Hope Fellowship, your community church, invite you to enjoy today's program as we dig deeper into what it means to be still growing in grace. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Still Growing in Grace. I think you're going to enjoy today's. I think you're going to enjoy the conversation. This is a topic that I had not heard of before. Let me just say, I have not heard of the title before, but once it was explained, what is this topic? I thought, oh man, I've heard of this all along. I just didn't have words to associate with what I was dealing with or struggling with, or well, let's just say, let's get into the conversation. But just before I do, again, thank you for taking time to join me today. This is going to be part one of a few conversations, and perhaps the first conversation will get you in hook, line, and sinker. It's a really, really good discussion. It's called Debunking Divine Command Theory, and I put a very small Wikipedia definition below. So it'll be explained as we have this discussion, and as you engage in hearing it, you're going to say at some point, oh yeah, okay, that's what this is. Otherwise, it sounds like an overly big theological topic that nobody knows much about, and I'm not educated enough to deal with that topic. Well, we all face this topic, and it fits, and it's found its way into traditional Western Christianity, and it's got to be taken care of, because I think it's one of the greatest hindrances to why people don't believe in the Trinity, in God, in the real God who is love. So let's just dig in. Don't forget to comment if you're watching. I'd love to know where you're watching from as well. I'm watching this live with you, so I'll interact with anything that's commented. But I'm hearing this for the first time. We recorded the interview, but I did not go back and listen to it at all. So this is my first full listen. I'm listening with you. So let's dig in. I think you're going to enjoy it. Here we go. All right. Hello, everyone. This is a time to enjoy Still Growing in Grace, and we are all growing in our different ways, learning and unlearning, and I'm glad you're taking time to join us today. This is probably this is the first conversation we're having in 2023, and Richard, thank you for being here. Bill, thank you for being here. But we got a topic that I don't even understand what the topic is quite yet. I have an idea, but we thought, let's just be real and have this live conversation. You're going to see it pre-recorded, but when I rewatch it, it's very exciting to hear it for the first time again. And I think it's amazing. So let's do a quick catch up. Remind people where you live and just give us a 10-second summary of this New Year transition thing, because we're into a brand new year, and then we'll get into the topic.
Okay, well, I'm down in Georgia, as is Bill, but I'll let him tell you that he is in Georgia. But I'm in Georgia, in Dalton, Georgia, just south of Chattanooga, across the Georgia line. And I'm a practicing attorney, but that's 10 seconds.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm in Georgia as well. I'm closer to the Atlanta area. I'm in the kind of outskirts of Metro Atlanta in Cherokee County, in an area called Woodstock, and lived here for the better part of my life. And I run an audiovisual company day in, day out, and blessed with a beautiful wife and two high school age kids. And yeah,
oh, that's the stress lines.
Well, I got one in college, one in high school. Yeah. So yeah,
that's cool. And I'm located in Southern Ontario, Kitchener-Waterloo area. I live in Elmira, Ontario, which is where I'm recording this from. I got a beautiful wife and three grown-up kids, and no kids at home at the moment.
There you go.
Two are moved out, and one is in college and comes back every once in a while. So that's our summary. All right. Richard, I gotta say this as maybe a compliment, who knows? But you just mentioned you're an attorney, but all the stuff you're posting, it's like deep. It's like, what we can't even keep up with with all the posts of thoughts, and you're not even trying to build a ministry. And that's so, it seems like you're more free to write freely when you're not trying to do that because you have a different job. You didn't expect me to ask this, but does that connect to you? Like, do you sense that, or what's going on there? Because that's fun.
Absolutely. I'm just blessed that I can do that. I've often, I couldn't write a book now. I mean, I've written some books, some self-published stuff, but and I did it in the days when I was really vehement and gung ho and all that, and I don't regret any of it. I mean, but I'm at a place now where I just write because I like to write, and I like to share and express and bless and learn, and I don't like to be corrected, but I have
None of us do.
I'm learning to not be antagonistic about it. But anyway, yes, it's a lot of freedom, because I do have another vocation that lets me kind of go and write just what's on me for the day. And the beautiful thing about Facebook is you can come back again next year, see what you wrote, correct it, edit it, streamline it. It literally is a book. It literally is each of us a book that we've written. And if anyone ever cares to really look at your life, they could just stream through your Facebook posts. When we hit it from that angle, this is where I'm at with the Lord, with the body of Christ, and just with love, with the concept of love and all those things. I mean, so I have a lot of when I'm not at work, I have a lot of time to write. So even though it's all more like paragraphs and articles and essays, it's not really any kind of thematic book, although the theme is the same, but it's not like it connects in any book form or anything, ministry form. And I don't even know what ministry means anymore.
That's right. Well, I'm envious in a healthy way of how you can just write so easily, so quickly. Bill Thrasher, same thing. Bill, you write all the time in the Jesus Purpose group. I just gave 2 of your books away to 2 couples in my church this morning. It was written in 2016, I believe, was the publishing year. And so again, both of you are working. I'm in this ministry role, and I don't get paid full time, but I have multiple jobs to try and keep things going. So it's funny how if your paycheck is tied to what you say, sometimes that can hinder or manipulate things. And it seems like there's so much freedom in these conversations that we have, and I'm really thrilled to be connected to you guys. All right.
Me too.
Let's get into this. Richard, you had a topic that you thought was really important that we should kind of begin a discussion on. I'm eager to hear what it is. Why don't you just express it, and then we'll start to banter.
Well, it's something I really consider it maybe the fundamental sickness that we all have. We've talked before about, I think it was Chesterton. G.K. Chesterton, who said we're all seasick and we're all in the same boat, and I think that's a healthier way to look at it than that we're all pathetic slobs, type of thing. That's the beat down gospel that we don't buy into anymore. But we are there. This is a fractured world, and there's fractured understanding. There's alienation. We're alienated in the spirits of our minds, Paul said. And so anyway, I've been going through this long journey trying to find out, what is it? What is the source of this alienation? How does it show itself? And I think this week I've gotten some real clarity on it. And before
you do that, define your alienation. You're assuming people will know what that is. So define the alienation, then it'll make more sense when you get to your next thing. I'm just catching that now.
Well, it's like the very concept of parental alienation in the legal field has to do with divorcing parents, battling parents who are divorcing, and they might alienate the feelings of their child toward the other parent. So that they then start projecting things on that parent and their lives. It's like a slander job. But the other parent's trying to establish a foothold so they can be the primary custodian. So
that doesn't happen in divorces, does it?
Yeah, sadly. It's one of the ugliest dynamics there is.
I see it too.
But if you use the metaphor, though, there for us, we have an alienation towards God as our heavenly Father, as our heavenly parent, as our heavenly mother. There's things that we're misguided about that keep us alienated and out of relationship with Him. not that, or her, however you want to phrase it. I'm jiggy with it all. All right, but God is everything. God is transcendent, and but that's another point to talk about today is the transcendence of God. But we are in an alienated state. Our thinking, we don't, in our own natural thinking, think spiritually. Thinking spiritually is something we occasionally slide in and out of, but it's supposed to be a continual state, and it is available to us as a continuous state. But it's all relational. It is a relational thing. So until we are in abiding relationship with the Father, that like Jesus was, he abided in relationship with him. There was no alienation. All right. Jesus was never alienated from his Father on any level. So we track down, what we can do is try to track down why are we alienated? Why do we think wrong thoughts? Why do we presume certain things? Why haven't we challenged certain strongholds that we think about God that are unworthy and that paint him as a bipolar monster rather than as a loving Father? So having gone through all that, I feel like I've gotten some clarity this week and on this where this comes from, and whether people who practice what I'm about to share may have never heard the term of what it's called. All right, but I think when we talk about it, and this is to kind of put it on a parallel track too. I've also been reconsidering what is it exactly? What is the gospel? The gospel that we confess. I know what it was when I was born again. I know I confessed Jesus was Lord. But really, what is that the best way to say it? Because there's a lot of baggage with that phrase, and yet it's a wonderful phrase too. But what is the essence? Can we crack that nut open and see really what is it we're confessing? What is it to confess Jesus? All right. So all that by way of saying this cancer that I'm talking about, that I believe is all over the. Sorry, my screen just went off.
We can still see it. You're fine.
Okay. It's been recognized before as the divine command theory. All right. Now, the way the divine command theory works is it is a belief that there is no virtue apart from God, so that anything God does is automatically good, no matter how it looks. All right. So that they would read the Old Testament where God seems to be commanding rape, and they're called the war rape, the war rape passages, or genocide. When God commands these things, well, it's not evil because God commanded. Because God commanding it makes it good. It makes it transcendently good. And I cannot tell you what an evil doctrine that is, and how it perverts. We do it without even thinking about it. How many people have you heard, well, why do you follow that particular thing in the Old Testament? Well, because God commanded it. If God commanded it, it's true and it's just. And
because his ways are higher than my ways.
Exactly. Him commanding it. I don't care how it sounds. I don't care if it's talking about stoning rebellious children, or stoning this person, or adulterers, or whatever. I'm doing all that, killing, mauling, destroying, oppressing, afflicting with sickness. That because God commands it, it's good. All right. So, and they used to think this way in the ancient world, even about the gods. Plato hit the thing about, well, is something good because God commands it, or does God truly command it because it's good? All right. So think about that for a minute. Does God commanding it make it good so that we don't even, use our conscience to try to tap into what's going on here?
So we're robots controlled by a program.
Exactly. So this, you see a lot of this in Calvinist thoughts, that God commands it, that there's that double terrible decree, it's the double predestination. Some of us are predestined. He commands us to go to hell before we're ever born, and others he commands to go to heaven, and it's all good because he commanded it. Him commanding it makes it good. Well, all right. So do you get the picture about that? I'll give you an example. Let me give you a perfect example. This is out of Luke 9. And y'all chime in at any point here, because this is really free flowing what we're doing. But this is Jesus going around, and listen to this. I'd never even noticed this particular part of the passage. And he's walking with the disciples, and he set his face. He's about to set his face to go to Jerusalem. He says in verse 51, and it came about when the days were approaching for his ascension. That's what I had never noticed before, his ascension. All right. So I think that's kind of a hint about what this is talking about. And his ascension, let's look at ourselves as we're walking along in the days of his ascension. He wants to ascend into everything. He wants to take us with him. He's ascending and he wants to take us with him. All right. But in the days that we're approaching for his ascension, that he resolutely set his face to go to Jerusalem. And he sent messengers on ahead of him. And they went and entered a village of the Samaritans to make arrangements for him. And they did not receive him because he was journeying with his face toward Jerusalem. And when his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them? But Jesus then turned and rebuked them, and they went on to another village. And if you look at other translations, it actually mentions Elijah. That like Elijah did in the Old Testament, do you want us to call down fire on them and destroy them for rejecting us? Jesus said, actually, I'm reading the wrong version of this, so you're just going to have to believe me. The version in the King James and the New King James, it says that Jesus said that you know not what spirit you're of. I came to save men and not destroy them. I came to save humanity and not destroy humanity. Now, where do you see the divine command in that story? Where do you does anything leap out at you? Where does the divine?
Well, from the disciples who are going back to the old way of thinking and saying, well, God obviously justified it there, therefore it must be good. Therefore, we must command the same thing onto the people who have rejected you, Jesus.
Yeah, perfect. And imperfect, perfectly imperfect. In commanding that, what's the logic of it? No one's listening to God now.
Yeah.
All right. God isn't saying anything now but the thought is because he did it then, because he said it then. And that's the same way people are with the Old Testament today. Because the Bible says that then.
I think it's worse. They're actually taking the New Testament the same way and getting literal and got to do what Jesus did. What would Jesus do mentality comes out of all that? Oh,
yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a big can of worms we're talking about here. This opens up a lot of stuff. But the logic of it is because we think God commanded it once, we don't even question it. It's commanded today. And where on earth does that come from? I mean, that's
religious leaders.
Yes.
Who are not allowed to be questioned.
Yeah. And what it does is it does keep us captivated, and we're not free thinking. We're not even engaging. We're not engaging God. We're doing the very thing. Jesus was so happy with Peter. I posted on this yesterday because he engaged with God. He said, "Oh, praise God, flesh and blood didn't tell you this, Peter, but my Father who's in heaven just told you that." That's what made Jesus happy was that Peter had an unmediated interaction with the Lord. So this whole thing about commands is really sick. So where I've been at this week with it, how do we know a command? All right. Let's say we think, even if we think God told us something, even if we think God is prompting us, is that all there is to it? Well, my best thought now is I'm being commanded, so I'm going to do it without questioning. I'm going to take my child up there and sacrifice him to the Lord like Abraham. Anybody could hear any bizarre thing and think it's commanded by God. So here's my question. What is it though? What there has to be a witness, an affirmation. Is this a command of God I'm following? I mean, he also commands us to love each other, but is that all there is to it? Oh, okay. He's commanded us to love. Okay. I'm going to start loving, or does there have to be something that catalyzes it, something that goes with it? And I'm excited about what I think that catalyzing agent is. Okay. I think that catalyzing agent is the nature of Jesus. Okay. The things that will let me know that a message to go kill or rape or destroy, I know is not of God. How do I know that it's not of God? Because it's not of Jesus. Okay. And because Jesus lives in us. So then the Jesus nature, the Jesus goodness becomes we said the word earlier, but it becomes our prophylactic. It protects us from lapsing into poor judgment and into wrong judgments about God. And you see these wrong judgments all in the Old Testament. They're right there to see, the horrible things.
And even moreover, they continue beautifully, and I say this in a weird way, into the New Testament. transparently, right? Peter still doesn't have it all figured out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Quite some time. We see the allowance of this process take place, obviously through the Old Testament, and even into the emergent kind of conversation of this new way of thinking and understanding through the disciples, who become then,
So this is new to them, right?
That's right. The apostles. Yes, that become the apostles. There's the word I was looking for.
Because it's not new today. It's old. It's just new to us, so to speak.
I think it's both.
Right. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's both. It's new to anyone who encounters the true nature of Christ for the first time. Yeah. Right. So while it's maybe not new in linear time, anytime someone walks into this presence of the living, breathing presence of Jesus, and we understand him from kind of manger to cross, and that life that he displayed and revealed to us, and that's the nature of God. That's the exact representation of the Father. And we get to compare that now to anything we think is divinely related. We start to walk more closely in alignment with what Richard's talking about, where we're, I guess, as Peter said, as Paul said, we have to take every thought captive, right? Take every single thought and go, okay, use Jesus as the measuring stick, right? Is this measure up to his level of love, to his standard of responsiveness to the Spirit? Every moment that we interact may be slightly different than we anticipate, because every moment is unique in how love may want to express itself. And that defies law. That defies sometimes even logic. It's not always cut and dry. We have to be walking in relationship with the Creator, who looks exactly like Jesus, in order to encounter that. It makes it much harder, but it also makes it much more beautiful, because we just give us the rules, give us the king, give us the edict, give us what we're supposed to do, we'll do it. This is the antithesis of this. This is the flow of experiencing life, light, and love in every moment, and falling on our face every once in a while, and only to realize that even when we do so, it's still wrapped in this this assurance that all things are going to be reconciled for good, even when something. And so I think that's what Jesus, we see him live out in the course of his ministry, and we get to kind of come alongside him and begin to encounter, quote unquote, God, however we understand it, in that way, and start to now hopefully reflect that.
Amen. And he accommodates our misunderstandings.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time.
He's not saying I am that way. He's saying, I'm going to show you as much as you can take today. I'm going to correct you as much as you can take today. Right. I'm not going to overwhelm you, okay, more than you can handle. I'm going to give you exactly what we're just going to walk through this together. And listen, I'm at the point where I think that this verse has always stunned me in 1 John 1:5, because John was the beloved disciple. And of course, that only means that John recognized his belovedness. That the thing about John, we're all beloved disciples, but John recognized his belovedness. So that's somebody who knew the love of God.
And not a prideful thing either. That's an authentic identity thing.
Well, he was faster than Peter and made sure he knew it.
Yeah, that's true. Sons of Thunder, right?
That's right.
So this is one of my favorite passages, and it's one of y'all's too, I know. But 1 John 1:5, John, the beloved, says this, and this is the message we have heard from Jesus and announced to you, that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. That is the gospel. That's the gospel. That is it in its most distilled core form. It has to do with his nature. The whole point. So when we receive Jesus, I'm all into the Lord and Savior. Yes, that's true on a lot of levels. But he's so much more than that. He is the light of the world. Jesus is
the light of who? The light of some people who say the right prayer?
I know. But there's no darkness at all. And this isn't just talking. In fact, it's not even talking. It's talking metaphysical darkness. It's talking moral darkness. It's talking every kind of darkness you can think of. There's no darkness in it. So I'm beginning to think that the leap of faith is our leap into that. The leap of faith, I don't think we grow in our faith if we just take, okay, Jesus is Lord. Yeah, but he does command war rape, and he does command this, and he does command this, and he's going to smite us and eternally torture us if we don't obey him to the letter, and if we ever reject him. I mean, that is not the real Jesus. So Jesus is here living in our conscience. You know, Origen said that the human conscience is the chamber of justice. That's the chamber where Jesus explains things to us. So
can I take that a step further just for a second?
Sure.
So it's not what you're saying is true, that Jesus lives in our conscience, but there's another layer of understanding that Jesus is fused with us. We are one in union with Jesus, not just in. Otherwise, there's two of us in our conscience. And so in my mind, that's how I'm hearing. I want to make sure that nobody can hear a dualistic thinking here, but there's a union here. And for the sake of terminology, that's a place where Jesus' experience is clearly in our conscience. Would that be fair?
Yes. I think so. It's bearing witness. The Spirit bears witness in us. And whenever you see the Spirit, just think the Spirit of Jesus. Yeah, Paul called it the Spirit of Christ. It's not two different things. It's the same thing. His Spirit lives in us, and it's the conscience that is the witness. So if our conscience, now we can have a defiled conscience before we received the message of no darkness. But once we receive them, and I'm not talking about receiving the message of no darkness just up here in our head, although that's nice too. But I'm talking about receiving it in our heart. I'm talking about taking that Kierkegaardian leap of faith into this principle. I know that that's what we've all three of us have done this. We have leaped off the cliff of an oppressive bipolar God into this non-dualistic light God Jesus. And Jesus is, but I mean, Brad Jerzak posted a wonderful meme. I can't remember who said it, but it was that transcendence now has a face, and the face is Jesus. Jesus is the face of transcendence. So his human nature, which makes it all, he's not transcended in the sense that, well, he's above good and evil, and if he wants to kill, if he wants to wipe out an entire nation because they've flirted with demons or because they've done this, and he wants to kill children and the mentally ill and all that and flood the world and all that. I mean, where is our conscience when we hear stuff like that? Our conscience, the Jesus conscience in us, just should be going, no.
And to dial it back even on a more, I guess, just personal and practical level. I mean, we're talking about kind of the big picture commands of God, nations being destroyed, genocide. Conversely, I mean, this happens on an interpersonal level with each one of us. I mean, that God justifies the smallest of our unloving behaviors toward one another. That God's behind me in my vengeful spirit that my boss was a jerk today, and I hope karma gets him. The person that cut me off in traffic, well, I'm going to say a little prayer because, God, I want to make sure they get a flat tire, right? We can play on the big, but, man, it's just as applicable in the smallest areas of our heart where we think that God is kind of on our team. And when we have an inclination toward that karmic kind of experience, or vengeance or violence or any of these kind of things, that we're justified in our position of divine providence or divine position, that God's on our team and against someone else. And I think that's what you're saying, Richard, is this is how, when you crack this Pandora's box open, how deep this rabbit hole really goes, of how it influences everything we do as people day in, day out, in every interaction of relationship we have with one another, with ourselves, with our society, with our environments, everything.
My mother literally said, and she said it a number of times, but I had a confrontation with her once, and she said, God is going to get you for this. She called me son of Satan at that point. And I thought, what does that make you? But anyway, it was just to me, it was funny. But she literally used the jargon of God's going to get you, because I wasn't buying into her logic, or I really disagreed or said something she absolutely could not agree with. And that was the leverage of my German Baptist background teaching. So you're wondering about conscience. I had thought, as you were talking about conscience, where does it get changed? And I remember my conscience beliefs, if you want to call that. I don't know how we can define it, but that's okay. My conscience told me in youth group that there's something off about the hell teaching that I was being taught. And I was in a youth group, but the pastor condemned any opposition. Therefore, my conscience was squelched and I was not allowed to learn to trust it anymore. So it's almost like church squelched my ability to believe and trust the Spirit in me. I could no longer hear the Spirit because now I had to rely on a system or a book or teachers for the real answer and the correct interpretation. And when you have such awful interpretation, go ahead.
Okay, well, so I think we're getting to a wrap-up point, and it's really
you're right.
Richard had teed this conversation up with all of us prior to obviously. So I got some notes that are basically right at the heart of exactly what you're talking about, Mike, that I think will lead perfectly in our.
We'll come back to it then. Okay.
That's right.
Well, let's do that. Let's just wrap this up. This is a good teaser, a 30-minute teaser. Like, wow, this could go on for a while, but let's wrap this up. And then, folks, we'll see you next week on this, and we'll continue part 2. I think this is going to be great. And we're going to wear the same shirts, just so you know. All right. Thank you.
It'd be funny if we wore each other's shirts when we came back.
All right. Turn this off. Here we go.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Hey, Jane. Good to see you watching. Haven't seen you for a while. It's great. Hello, Kevin. I see you sitting there watching. You obviously know those other guys. Where are you watching from? I'd love to know where. Jane, I think you're in New York. I think. At least in the state of New York. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Part 2 is going to be next week. We're going to probably record a couple more on that topic. Did you notice that while there's a fancy title for it, we've been exposed to this for a long time. And I think it's a critical topic that must be talked about so it doesn't become uncomfortable to talk about. Because sometimes when you hear a topic like that, we can feel intimidated and not engage in it because we don't know what fully it is and we could say something wrong. But now we move on. I know, great topic. I love it. So yeah, Charlottesville. That's cool. Thanks, Kevin. And Jane's in upstate. Well, upstate, I'm going to guess New York. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to run. It is time. We're trying to keep these to 35 minutes long, at least the interviews-ish. But, it's the way it is. So I hope you enjoyed that. Share that if you liked it. And we will catch you next week. If you want to have a different kind of message on Sunday mornings, I'm live every Sunday. And it's just encouraging to a church family, an online church family, because it's merged now. It's hybrid. So, it's just a different style and a different topic. Here on Still Growing in Grace, I get to deep dive into some really heavy-duty topics. Whereas with Hope Fellowship, we're kind of walking through a journey of growing and learning, and it's a lot slower and more gentle. So anyway, that's all we got. You guys have a really great day. We'll catch you next time. And here we go. Join me next time on Still Growing in Grace for more good news. Enjoy previous episodes by downloading our podcast at growingingrace.ca. You can also visit hopefellowshipycc.com to find our service times and location. If this show has been an encouragement to you, please consider making a donation today at growingingrace.ca and help us keep spreading this good news. Thank you again for tuning in to Still Growing in Grace.